What's up, fam? Elijah Shiloh here, and welcome back to another episode of EXTOL WE. And this week, Kevin, Nestor, Brian, David, Phil are my extras, and I am the ordinary. Videos that went live last week were God's manifest presence connected 3.5 years ago in the past to a video called Freedom's Greatest Violation in honor of what God has been doing that is so silly. I thought I'd replicate the same set that I had 3.5 years ago and just kick back and relax. Brain is definitely feeling a little foggy, not quite on my A game, not because I'm sick, but because I'm in the middle of a 21-day fast with my church family, as we always do at the beginning of the year, and I am a little bit on the hungry side. Friends, start off with God's silliness. I always love it when he reveals his glory by causing all of his goodness to pass before us, to be in awe of who he is. And he's been up to it again. Now, 2 weeks ago, I hit 131 videos on EXTOL WE. So 131 videos live on my channel. And last week's video then brought all of my live videos to 132. Last week, I didn't recognize it until I started editing. I'm like, oh, Jesus, come on. Last week's episode was episode 121 on EXTOL WE, and it went live on January 11th, 2026, which would be 1/11. My friend Kevin then, whose YouTube account name is @KevinG111, commented on my video 111. Now, interestingly, he also sent me a text clear in the past with a screenshot of my video, Legacy of Fullness, and said 111 in the text. That's all he had, and sent it to me. At that time, I had 111 subscribers at that point, which is so incredibly massive because I know the video that is sitting in the dark paired to that video waiting to go live absolutely blows my mind. Massive. Other silliness in his screenshot is that he captured how many people that I was giving my shout out to as my fam, which was 8,049,922,608 people at that time. And I will post here what the difference is for the people that are here now in 2026. We're way past 8 billion people now. Also, he had 66% battery life left, and that there's a video of Chris Valentin down here on the bottom on the frame, who I included in my very first video. He sent his email through that I printed off and read for you all on Friday, February 14th, 2020. And it's a teaching on spiritual warfare. Of course it is. Now, and this is gonna ring through to you as why it's so incredibly meaningful to me here in 4 weeks that Kevin saw that video with no views. Of course he did. He had to. Now, here's the silliness then that comes out of it, that 11 squared is 121. And as you guys know, as you've been with me for any amount of time, that 121 is so meaningful to me with my children saying Psalms 121. And that 11 squared is 121. And my halfway point of Extraordinary Life with Elijah was on my grandpa's land that has 11 acres that he paid $11,000 for. And I recorded that video on 11/11. 11 is such a massive number for me. And then my friend Kevin posts 111 for the second time, which is 2 is the number of witness, and 111 squared is 12,321. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Go. Now the reason this is so massive is, again, I know the video that is attached to Legacy of Fullness. It's just waiting in the darkness, ready to be declared at its appointed time, and that it's the embodiment of Extraordinary Life with Elijah. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3, so 3, 2, 1, go. Friends, again, in this period of time, with Extraordinary Life with Elijah, and just in life in general, in business, in family, in friends, in church, in almost every aspect of my life, I am again wrestling as this word has come to me. Elijah, it's as easy as 1, 2, 3, so 3, 2, 1, go. I'm in this place where I have to remember that it's the Lord my God who gives me the ability to make wealth and so confirms his covenant with my fathers that he swore to them as it is to this day. Friends, in the earlier part of last week, I was feeling incredibly lazy. We hadn't ran our dishwasher in quite a while, and I didn't have a spoon to eat my cold cereal with. This was just before we went into fast period. And so I said, man, I want a spoon, but I don't want to wash one because I'm being lazy. And I was like, oh my goodness. I have a spoon that is clean and it's ready to be used. And this spoon packs so much memory to me that it's absolutely overwhelming. Now, when I pulled out this monster and began to eat my cereal with it, Kailani asked me and said, Dad, what's the story with that spoon? So I began to share with her the testimony connected to this spoon. And as I did, I got done and she said, Dad, I think it's very meaningful that you're eating your cereal with that spoon where we are in life right now and going into our fast. Before I jump in to tell you the testimony of what God has done in the past, his mighty works, I have to show you this picture of my friend Nestor. Charlotte and I, back in 2012, lived in El Salvador. And during our period of learning the language and learning the culture, herself, myself, Nestor, and our driver, Saul, went to Los Naranjos, which is a coffee finca in El Salvador, to tour the whole coffee process. I had a 12-year career in coffee, and I'd never been to a coffee plantation before. And so as part of our learning and cultural experiences, we got together, went to Los Naranjos, and spent an entire day there. Now, this picture is of Nestor. He found this sign. And Nestor spent a long time in San Francisco, and he wanted to get a picture of it to send to his friends. And so he stood in front of this big pile of sacks that was just off of this huge stack of coffee. Now, mark that in your mind as to why this picture is so significant. But roll forward then a few months later that we began to do coffee development in the first business venture that I ever started. I started a coffee exporting company. The coffee would be sold at churches around the United States, and then all of the money would come back to support the ministry that I was a part of called Broken. As a part of developing coffee, you have to develop the roast and the flavor profiles and pick coffees and grade it. And so my friends Brian, David, and Phil came down on a coffee trip to do a 2-week intensive with me to help develop the coffee to get it ready to export to the United States. Friends, I had worked so hard over like a 6 to 8 month period, getting all of the coffee in place, getting bags in place, roasters, suppliers, to get it all ready so that when the team came down, we would be ready to hit the ground running to develop the coffee. Friends, 3 days before the team left the United States, I found out that the plantation owner that I had a contract with had been lying to me and couldn't supply the coffee that they said that they were going to supply. So everything about the trip was absolutely hashed. We didn't have a product to develop. So as they came down, I remember we sat in the ministry center and I just bawled. I was so frustrated and stressed. All of this work that they bought their tickets, they came, we were ready to develop coffee, and then we had zero plan. So the men reminded me, God is in control. Don't worry about it. We're not upset. So while we're here, let's press into and see what we can develop. We went to a coffee company that offered coffee, and we got a bunch of different coffee types. We began to grade those coffees, and then Brian started jumping on the batches, small batch roaches, so that we could get batches of coffee, cup those to taste them for quality. That it was so beautiful to be able to jump in, to have something to do. And we were able to build lots of relationship, have lots of laughs about our hairnets and how silly that they made us look. And we began to get some coffee that was pretty good. Now, this entire time, friends, that we were developing the coffee, my friend Nestor kept saying Lai Ji, which he is the only person in the world who is allowed to call me Lai Ji. Ness, love you, man. Lai Ji, I got the hookups, man. I know where we can find some good coffee. If you'll just listen to me and help me to guide you, like I know where the good coffee is. But I kept saying, Ness, I've been working on this for a long time. I thought I had the good coffee, that fell through. We're trying to come up with a plan B. Nestor is a very patient man. We finally got our test batches roasted up, began to cup the coffee, and as we did, we're just like, man, this is not it. This coffee is not quality coffee. This is not what we're looking for. But we had such a great time doing it. So as we finally decided that pathway is closed, we don't have a good product there, we all decided, guys, I'm gonna take you to Los Naranjos. We're gonna go to a coffee finca and experience it together. It was so incredibly fun getting to take them up to the tops of the mountains, show them where the coffee is grown at altitude, and like be able to pick cherries off of the tree. It's just exquisitely beautiful. Just the machinery that meets the jungles in that area is so inspiring. So we were able to get lots of fun pictures, lots of good memories together as we were going along. But as we began to walk through the processing plant and began to talk with all of the coffee growers, that Ness started doing his magic. He's just a beautiful networker. It has such a grace on his life to build relationship that we found out one of the most well-known third wave coffee producers in the United States had contracted with Los Naranjos to buy their coffee at over $4 a pound. And that the grower, when he heard what we were doing, said, I have like 60 tons of this coffee left that this company hasn't purchased and contracted for. Would you like to buy it for your ministry? And we said, yeah, but $4 plus a pound green is way more than what we were hoping to spend. And he said, oh, because you're helping my people and all the money is coming back to help people that are in crisis, he said, I'm gonna sell it to you just over $1 a pound. How does that sound? Friends, we were absolutely blown away. And as we went back through all of our pictures and we looked at them, the picture that Nestor was standing in front of with the San Francisco sign was the exact same stack of coffee that God gave to us for our ministry project. Friends, I ran out in a massive circle all over El Salvador talking to all of these different people, but as Nestor, myself, and Charlotte, and Saul just toured through this coffee finca, and we're just relaxed, enjoying the culture, building memories, taking pictures, that God walked us right past the coffee, the provision that He had for us, which was some of the best coffee in the world. And He had to allow my plans to fail so that His purposes and His power could be made evident in my weakness. Friends, as we found this coffee, we took it back to the Ministerio del Café, which is the head of all coffee exports in El Salvador. Nestor had the hookups again, that we went to the Ministry of Coffee, the governmental head of all coffee export, and they began to help us to grade the coffee, that we had sieves, that we saw, like, is this coffee very consistent? Like, how much of it is chaff, to coffee that's pitted, like what's gonna be our return on our investment, that we began to investigate it. And the head of the Ministry of Coffee, who had developed El Salvador's Cup of Excellence Award coffee for 2012, was the one who was heading up all of our research. When I told the gentleman that it was my birthday that day, on that day, it was my birthday, the gentleman said, well, congratulations, happy birthday to you. Here's 2 pounds of my award-winning coffee, which was selling for over $100 a pound green. Said, go home, my friend, enjoy your birthday, and I will develop your coffee for you while you celebrate. Charlotte and I and the team, we went out to sushi that night. We're just having a great time. Our minds absolutely blown. Come back the next day, August 14th, and there is this exquisitely roasted coffee by a master roaster who had produced a Cup of Excellence Award. Friends, this coffee was exquisite. We cupped it there at the Ministry of Coffee. Our minds were absolutely blown, and then we took it back to the ministry center. Again, did all sorts of tests and grading on it, deciding on like the flavor notes and the aroma so that we could then market it. And then we had 4 or 5 days left to spare for the coffee team's trip, and we just got to travel around and have fun. Friends, I remember at that time that we were looking at this peninsula that was in Suchitoto that we were going to purchase to be a part of the Broken Ministry, to help take people that were in crisis situations to, so that they could be surrounded by water and be safer. It would be easier to keep the place secure. So we took the team out to Suchitoto, and as we were sailing back on our boat, I was talking with David. We were just, again, over and over repeating the glories of God. Like, we cannot believe this. We can't believe the coffee that God has just given to us. And I remember David challenged me. He said, you need to write these things down. Take pictures, write them down, or you're going to forget the testimonies. That it's so important to remember. Friends, then a few weeks after the team had left, then that I got a package in El Salvador, and David had bought me a silver spoon that's inscribed with broken on one side and then Elijah on the back side. He included a little card with it and said, I want to give you a token to help remind you of the excellencies of the Lord so that you don't forget what the Lord has done. Family, that's when this spoon has sat in my drawer for years, if not over a decade now. And then I pulled it out to eat my cold cereal with. And that, just like in the days of old, when Joshua took the people through the Jordan River and they picked up stones, and the Lord said, in the future, when your children see these stones, tell them what the Lord has done. Tell them of the Lord's mighty works. That I whipped out my spoon, and my kids say, Dad, tell us about this spoon. What is that? And I got to then retell my children the glories and the stories of the Lord's power in the land, and that I got to remember the Lord's goodness. Friends, as with the video, God's manifest presence. It doesn't matter what success that we have in life, that the promised land was already producing its milk and honey fruitfulness before the children of Israel got there, and the land was pervaded by a people whose sins had reached their zenith. We can go into the land, that we can be prosperous, we can be successful, we can do all of the things right, and they can even have supernatural participation, that God said, I will send my angel ahead of you to give you entrance into the land, but he said, my presence will not go with you. And Moses said, no, no, no. If we do not have the manifest presence of your person in our lives, how will anyone know that you are pleased with us unless your presence goes with us? I think it's so beautiful to see how I was laboring and praying, and we had ministry teams praying for us and laboring for 6 months, and all of my plans went to kaput. But God came along, gifted us something better that I had no idea that we could even achieve. That God dropped this gift of excellence into our lap in such a way that testified that He is God and that His presence was with us. Beyond that, though, that it also highlights the beauty of what it looks like to give grace to people to be free to live out of the destiny of their good works. That the thing that I confess to you here is that I did not start a coffee company in El Salvador. That I was the one who was the authority. I was leading the charge. I was making decisions. But my friend Nestor, he had all of the connections and was the one that brought this coffee to the forefront. It was my friends Brian, David, and Phil that helped me to develop it and to grade it. That it was the head of the ministry of coffee in El Salvador who roasted the coffee to perfection and then handed it off to another gentleman that he was in connection with that continued roasting it. And I just stood by eating sushi and drinking very expensive coffee. Friends, it's so beautiful to see then that as I pressed forward with wanting to build the company, to make all the decisions, and that there was in my heart of hearts that the hidden agenda of my secret motives is that I wanted to succeed, to be able to say, look at this coffee product that I created. God knew my heart, so He helped me out with it. The blessedness is that I had community around me that reminded me of the goodness of the Lord, such that I didn't abort the life of what God was doing. And instead of just saying, team, we're just gonna sit back and suck on our gums, send you home, and we'll just try again. Instead, we kept moving forward into the promised land, promised abundance that God had with us. We faced the giant of adversity, and God gave us an inheritance that testifies of his goodness. Friends, now here in this era, that then God has reminded me, Elijah, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Friends, beyond the pejorative context of that people that were born into privilege, that don't get to see the benefit that is in their life and are often unaware of it, that I have a silver spoon that I was born with that reminds me of the goodness of God, and that I feast at his table, that as I get to use the silver spoon that God has given to me, that I get to be reminded in every bite, not that I'm thinking about food because I'm on a fast and I'm super hungry, but every bite of my food that I take, that I get to be reminded that I am beautifully broken in Christ. That until a horse is broken, it is no good to its rider. Its power is not under control, and the meekness to be submitted under the directorship of its rider. And I'm beautifully broken. And on the backside of all of it is the name Elijah. At the forefront, though, is the expression of my friend David to purchase this beautiful gift to me to remind me. My friends Phil and Brian, all of their expertise in coffee and helping develop the coffee. My friend Nestor, who brought this beautiful expression of the Lord forward and got to serve so many people in the United States, and that all of the proceeds of that fruitfulness of generating wealth got to come back into El Salvador to support people that were in need. Friends, how that encourages me in this time period is that as I'm moving forward into the beginning of season 7, the finish of season 6, and so many of the things that are coming, they're so massive, they are so far beyond my ability to accomplish that they're becoming, I'm allowing them to become more weighty than they should be. But there is a testimony of momentum behind my back that God has said, I have more than enough sufficiency in grace, Elijah, to accomplish every good work that I have established in you to provide. And fam, I have you. Whereas I only had those 4 people around me in my coffee process, I now have all of my fam gathered around me to make this dream of extraordinary life with Elijah and what God is doing reach its fullest potential. Wherever you're at, I want to encourage you that God is able and will finish the good work that he began in you. That he who started the good work, he is going to finish the good work, and the abundant life that God has for us, that he's leading us forward into, he will lead us forward to by his presence, and in such a way that it will manifest to the world that God is with us. So if you subscribe to what I am doing, hit the button, hit it and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. I am a content creator. And if you love this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. Like I said in my video in the past, hit the thumbs down button. I'm feeling hungry, and hitting the thumb down button will make me feel full. I pray blessings on all of our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I will see you in the next video.